My guest called in right on time. I always email my guests, and we contact each other through email prior to the interview, and I always say call at 6:55 a.m. and then our interview will start shortly after 7. And I'm always fascinated and thrilled when I look at the clock at 6:55 and the telephone lights up. And that happened again this morning as my guest called in. And as it turns out, we were talking a couple of minutes before now when I went back on the air, and we have a lot of mutual acquaintances, a lot of people that we both know and have served with or gone to school with or fraternity brothers with or what have you. And so that's always fun as well. And the book he has written is a critical one. It's a guide for teenagers, and actually the tips can be used whether you're a teenager or an adult. And is none other than Matthew P. Stevens. He's passionate about teaching and counseling adolescents. He specializes in designing curriculum that addresses critical thinking, self-management, interpersonal communications, and decision-making. Matt is director of extended school day services for College Achieve Greater Asbury Park Charter School in Asbury Park, New Jersey. And he's available for speaking engagements and can be contacted at info@welcometowork.org. More information about Matt and his expertise can be found at welcometowork.org. And throughout the conversation, I also learned that he is a brother in the fraternity Omega Psi Phi. With that being said, Matt, welcome to the Reading Circle with Marc Medley.
Oh, thank you so much, Mark, for inviting us out. We're really excited to be here. And as it relates to being on time, one of the first things that we say in the book to the young people is focus on a quote that my grandfather always told me, and I'm sure your grandfather told you at the same time. He says, on time is late and early is on time. So we want to make sure that we focus on getting here on time.
Well, I know that's right. As a matter of fact, one of your fraternity brothers, you may probably know him, my guess is that's Carney B. Bragg.
Okay, great, yeah.
I don't know if you know Carney or not, but Carney had one about time, too. He was like, why have a time if you're not going to be on it?
Yeah, I'm going to copy that one.
And that's what's so, because Carney's in the funeral business. And I would always tell people there were very few things that I knew ran on clockwork as close to whatever the time was, if not dead on it. And that was kind of like, at one point, it used to be airlines and trains. But Broadway plays, generally, whatever that curtain time is, that curtain time's open. But if you do a funeral with Carney P. Bragg, whatever time that funeral says on that program, that's the time that funeral kicks off, regardless of who's there or not there. So one time I was teasing Carney about that, and I said, man, I have met very few people that are on time. And that's whenever he responded back with, why have a time if you're not going to be on it?
The funniest thing is I've always heard people say, man, you're going to be late to your own funeral, but not at his funeral home. Not
at Carney's. No. But it is good to have you here. Listening audience, I tell you all the time, with the advent of social media, I cannot express to you what a blessing social media has been in terms of me of connecting with people and getting guests on the show. And this is yet another example of that, as I'm on LinkedIn, Matt is on LinkedIn. We saw each other. He saw that I was a host. He messaged me, and I said, great, send me an email at this address. We'll get your schedule. Sure enough, that happened. And as it turns out, Matt does work in Patterson. He's down in Asbury Park, but he comes up and knows, as I said, we have a lot of mutual acquaintances. So his book is, and is there more than one book, or is this the main? Is this your only book, or are there others?
Well, this is my book.
This is yours, right? Because I know on the site there's different things, but I know okay. So this one, so it's Welcome to Work, and it's welcome with the number 2 work. All right. And so, all right, let's talk to me, because I see in your bio you work with youth, adolescents, teens. Where did the notion for this book come from?
Primarily, I love working with young people, and I believe that social programs are great, but the best social program in the world is a job.
I know that's right.
And the focus on getting kids prepared for work today is not that difficult if you start early enough to kind of really get them motivated. And with the advent of technology and as things kind of move forward, if they don't start early, they'll never be able to kind of catch up because of the way things are moving so fast. And so I was interested in engaging young people in that process to show them how easy it is to get prepared for work, even if you want to work for yourself. But it takes work to get prepared for work.
It really is. And the younger, the better. In terms of, I tell kids, and it doesn't always hold true, because one of the age-old questions I think probably all of us has heard whenever we were children was, what do you want to be when you grow up? And most of the time, like, you know, everybody doesn't have to know. I'm not saying everybody has to know. But what I have found is children who really are, or who do have a clue of what they really want to be, and they're serious about that and they're focused on that, generally tend to be more successful. And when I say that, I mean, I use examples such as Kenny G or Bill Clinton or somebody who definitively said at an early age, this is what I'm going to be. Kenny G, whenever he figured out what the saxophone was, his story goes something along the lines of he was watching the Ed Sullivan Show and saw someone playing that instrument on there, and he made up in his mind then that's what he was going to be. And he made it happen. Bill Clinton, same deal. When he shook John F. Kennedy's hand, he made up in his mind, I am going to be president of the United States one day. And what I'm saying is because people or kids, when they're young like that, they can start now putting steps in place of what do I need to do to get there. And with, as you said a couple of minutes ago, with the technology, I tell kids all the time. Like, I have a young man in my school, 8th grader. He says he wants to be a neurosurgeon. I said, great. I hope, you know, he's not doing what he needs to do to get there, but the fact that he knows that's what he wants to do. So I had a conversation with him the other day, Matt, and said, have you contacted any neurosurgeons? Because the technology now, with Google and all the different social media sites, you can inbox somebody and they respond. I'm such and such. I'm an 8th grade student. I want to be a neurosurgeon and do what you do. Could you tell me what courses I need to take in high school, courses I need to take in college, so forth and so on. So the time for things like that has never been greater. So whenever you start saying, okay, start preparing yourself, the tools that we have for preparation has never been greater.
Absolutely. Well, amazingly, you know, I get up every morning around 5 o'clock. I live here in the Jersey Shore, and the coolest thing about it is the beach is just a couple of blocks away from the house, and I can go there and kind of really relate by watching the sun come up and the ocean and so forth and so on, because it's really soothing for me. And so me calling at 6:55 is kind of late, actually, but this morning at about 6 o'clock, I look at the phone, and there's a young lady, 16 years old, who went to the website this morning at 6:30 and just sent me a message that, can you please help me get one of the jobs in Essex County? Because on social media last week, we did the workshop in Essex County, and I invited all of the young people there because we had the Mayor's Office of Employment and Training, and whatever kid came got a job.
Wow.
And so, but you had to be there. You can't get a job after the fact.
Right.
You know, you had to be there because Mayor Ted Green, he sent his representative to the meeting and says, hey, listen, if they're preparing these young people, we want these young people to be working for us for the summer. Give them the jobs on the spot. And so we had about 8 young people that qualified that were able to get the jobs right there on the spot. So this young lady wrote me this morning at 6:30 in the morning, which says that she is really wanting to work if she's up that early looking at my website. But all she did was say, can you help get me one of the jobs in Essex County? So I wrote her back with by 6:45 with this statement, and I use this at all of my workshops when I start. I tell the kids to ask 3 questions. What is it that you want to do this summer? Why do you want to do it? And what do you bring to the table? So I'm waiting for her response now, and I'm going to do my best to try to help her with some of the activities. But if young people can ask themselves those 3 questions, that is the onus of getting them prepared to work.
Well, I'll tell you what, the fact that you just said that child was up that early and contacting you that early, and that says a whole lot.
Absolutely.
And the reason, again, I'm saying what I'm saying, because sometimes it's just that little, I have this conversation with my daughter all the time. It's like, there's a difference between mediocrity and excellence. And sometimes it's just a little extra oomph. And where I say, like, you're satisfied with just enough to get by. You're satisfied with the easiest route possible. So when I hear you talk about that a child is up this early in the morning and not goofing off somewhere, that he or she is actually concentrated on, getting a job. But I mean, because she could have emailed you later on. She could have emailed, it's a Saturday. She could have emailed you later today. But 6:30 in the morning, a teenager or a child, wow, that says a whole lot. But that also says, I guarantee you that this same child, you'll probably be reading about 5-10 years down the line.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. One of the quotes I have in my book as well is a quote by Aristotle where he talks about excellence. And he says that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act, but a habit.
Correct. I'm glad you said that.
By having these young people learn that whatever you do consistently, you're going to be good at. Even if it's something bad, you'll become good at doing whatever that bad is. But if you consistently focus on, I want to be a neurosurgeon, I want to be a neurosurgeon, I want to be a neurosurgeon, even at this age, 10, 11, 12, 14, if you have access to the computer or your phone, the skies are the limit.
Correct.
And so one of the other things that we do is when we start our workshop, usually, and you know more than anybody else because you work with young people, usually the first things you do is you say, well, turn all of the cell phones off and put them away. What I do is I tell them to turn the cell phones on, and I ask them to go to their social media page and just put up this social update to say, I'm looking for a summer job in the blank area. Can anyone help me? And then to put up a picture of themselves that's a flattering picture, maybe a graduation picture or something like that. And then throughout the workshop, I ask them to continue to look at their phone to see how many hits they got, how many likes they got, how many comments they got. And every time I do it, I say, most young people have 1,000 friends on social media, Facebook or Twitter or whatever the case may be. I says, well, so if only 10% of the people that say that you're friends on social media respond, that's 100 responses. And then if only 10% of that 100 actually have hot leads, those are 10 hot leads that you had, and it only took you 30 seconds to do it.
Right.
And so the power of social media in job search has made it incredibly easier than it was back when we were kids.
Absolutely. And there was a word when you were giving that quote, and you heard me say, I'm so glad, was that word habit. And for those of you in the listening audience, whether you're parents or whether you're students, whoever, Mr. Stevens just said a powerful word in terms of habit. And I'm saying what I'm saying based on what I deal with on a daily basis with my younger students. And one of the things I'm constantly telling them is you're developing habits now that you're going to carry over, unless you change it, that you're going to carry as you get older. That's not going to serve you well. So the pushback I usually get, which will lead us into one of your things about dressing, your chapter or the area where you address dress.
Correct.
Was this whole thing of, look, we don't wear caps in the building. We don't wear backwards cap. We don't wear our pants hanging down. We don't wear inappropriate T-shirts with this kind of languages and that. So one day you're going to go on a job. Mr. Medley, we won't do that on a job interview. Yes, you will. Because you're in the habit of doing it and you don't have the wherewithal to understand that there's a time and place for everything. So you're going to show up at that job interview with that on, and you're going to be crossed off the list right there at the door. Talk a little bit about where you said to dress or not to dress.
Well, that was actually based upon an experience I had with my own son when he was a teenager. He's 25 now, but my son loves video games. And so he was around 16 years old, and he said, Dad, I'm going to get my job at the video store. I forget what it was, whatever store that they sell the video games at. GameStop was the name of the store.
Right.
And so I says, well, that's great. Let's go over what you're going to say and so forth and so on. And your little resume, we're going to get it together. And so you're good. And so that morning he was headed out. He had a gamer shirt on. I says, well, where's your shirt and the tie? He says, well, Dad, I'm going to be working at GameStop. Nobody wears shirts and ties there. And so I says, well, you really want to think about that. What's the benefit of wearing a tie, and what is the liability of wearing a tie? And helped him to kind of understand that. And he actually got the job because he went in with a shirt and a tie. And the other kids came in with T-shirts. And I said, that speaks volumes for you, because long before you get there, people are going to, size you up and to say what you look like.
Correct.
And so I made that case study, and most of all of the case studies in the book are based upon experiences that I've had with young people in teaching. I teach a course at Rutgers University called Are You Ready for Work? And it's
all right,
the brainchild of a great sister named Dr. Diane Hill. Dr. Hill developed the program and gave me the opportunity to teach there with the young people. And that's what we do. After school, we focus on helping young people understand that, you have to get prepared for work, and it's your responsibility. So I hope that answered the question.
No, it did. Matter of fact, it almost scared me to a degree, because there is a train of thought to dress like whatever it is the job that you're going for. And I thought that's where you were getting ready to go. And I was glad when you said no, it was the tie and the shirt that stood out, because that's the message we're trying to get across. Yeah, maybe once you get the job, they want you to dress like that in the store for the audience that's coming in. But to get the job, you may have to do something a little different. Hence the tie and the shirt, because the management is looking totally different at you than maybe even the person is running the store.
Correct.
So,
Correct. And
go ahead.
I was just saying I'm big on quotes, and so the quote that I have for that particular workshop is to dress for the job you want, not the job you have.
Right. And so, I mean, again, I this is going right down my alley, because it's part of a message other than the academics that I'm constantly having whenever I talk with students, that I try to help them understand that, yes, I'm here for your math, language arts, but I'm also here to help you with life skills. And the school that I serve in, when I tell you that they are social skill deprived coming out of their homes, is an understatement. So in their minds, they honestly think this dysfunctional behavior that they exhibit is how society works. And I'm constantly trying to help them understand that if you try that in society, you're going to be disappointed badly, because you're going to see society is going to reject you. And you're going to wonder why you keep getting rejected. And it's because you've now normalized dysfunctional behavior, that when you take that out into the larger society, it doesn't work that way. And when you start talking job interviews, people really don't understand that a lot of times your conversation throughout the interview, your looks, how you even walk in the door, will determine whether or not you even get accepted to the next round of interviews. That a lot of times, those of us who are doing the interviewing, we made that determination very quickly and just have to go through the motion of the rest of the interview, but we've already made our decision.
As soon as the kid walks in. A funny story. When I this is the first time I've ever heard you speak, and the first thing that came to mind, I was like, wow, this guy's voice is phenomenal. When I was doing my videos, I'm not, the guy that shoots the videos, he says, well, you're good at what you do, but you're not, your voice is not the one you need on the video. You need a professional to actually narrate your videos. And when I heard your voice, I was like, wow, that his voice is phenomenal. And the other day, I was going through the Wendy's parking lot, Wendy's drive-through, and a young man who sounds extremely like you, very professional, and just a voice that you really would kind of say, this is a great voice. He was at the register, and when he asked for my order, I says, wow. I said, this kid shouldn't be at at Wendy's, he
Right.
should be the next Von Hopper or,
Right.
or Frankie Crocker or somebody. He wouldn't know who those people were, but and when I got up to the window, I says, "Man, you're in the wrong business. You should really be doing voiceovers." And he was like, "What are you talking about?" And he didn't realize that people like me pay people to do voiceovers for our material,
Right?
And it's just that's how many new type of jobs are out there that these kids just don't know about. But it's our job to highlight and show them, because if not us, then who?
Absolutely, and thank you for the compliment. Thank you. And I do teach, one of the courses that I teach at the college level is public speaking. And it's something that's come over time. This is my 18th year on the air with the show, but when I first started in 2001, I used to hate to hear my voice recorded. I used to hate to go back and reflect and listen on my show because I hated how my voice sounded. But over time, it developed. And so I really do thank you for that. And again, even how we speak determines. I mean, there's so many things, because I've sat on both sides of the interview and interviewee chair. And there's so many things that goes on in an interview that people really don't realize. I mean, I remember my office was up on the 3rd or 4th floor of the building. It was in a school and it didn't have an elevator. And the person who was coming in interviewing for the job, it was a lady. And so she says, when she gets in and the position, the classroom that I was interviewing for was on that floor. So she comes in and she sits down and says, "Oh my God, all these stairs. I don't think I would be able to do it if the classroom is up here." Something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing.
Right.
But right off the bat, okay, we're going to talk for a minute, but I knew right off the bat she wouldn't be hired. And I don't think she realized that commentary is what killed it for her. I've had others that would come into the community. "Oh, there's no place to park. My husband was afraid for me to come here." It's like, okay, if your husband's afraid for you to come on the interview, and how you going? What is he going to feel like if you get hired? So people don't even realize, like, their commentary can kick them out of it. Their dress can kick them out. How they speak can get them. Again, and I'm trying to see if I see it here, and you probably have. If it's not here, I'm sure you've spoken to. When you're writing your cover letters and your resumes, and you're writing that cover letter to the company, you got to make sure whoever the interviewer is, you've spelled their name correctly.
Correct.
Because one of the things that's a turn off is whenever someone writes you a letter and your name is spelled incorrectly. It's just so many things that can determine whether or not, first, you get the job. And I'm looking here that all the difference, you got getting the job, that's one area, then starting the job. Because, a lot of times we hear with work, which is kind of sort of true, is it's not what you know, it's who you know. And what I always say with that is, well, okay, I kind of give that a little bit of credence. In some instances, it may be not what you know, but what you know may get you in. Who you know may get you in the door, but what you know is what keeps you in the house.
Correct.
All right. And people need to understand that once you get in, because even in terms of, I get kids all the time, would you write a recommendation letter or would you sign my working papers? And I give them the talk. Now, look, if I put my signature on here, you're going to have to go in there and produce, because I don't want anybody coming back to me saying, "I can't believe Mr. Medley recommended you."
Yes. I find that all of the time, where young people, and just people in general, sometimes get intimidated by the concept of the job interview. And what I kind of talk to them about is how you started this conversation. You said that, "Hey, listen, when we have this interview, we're going to have a conversation." And I talk to the young people in the book about interviewing and having a conversation. You can't go in there if you've never had a job before and speak to the person and answer questions about stuff that you don't know, because you can't know what you don't know.
Correct.
But you do have valid life experiences if you are an older brother, if you are a captain of a football team, if you coordinated the fashion show. These things help you to be able to kind of talk about your peer leadership, about your ability to solve conflict, about your ability to be on time. I'll lastly say that a sister called the other day she says, Matt, my son's going on his first job at Great Adventure. And that's kind of big down here where I'm at. What
Right.
Great Adventure does is they send a bus to a central area, and the kids all have to get on the bus, and then they go to work so that they don't, because if you're 16, you don't really have a car to get to Great Adventures, so they send a bus. And she said that I'm afraid that my son is not going to be able to get the job because he's never had a job, and he won't be able to answer those particular questions. So I told her, relax. The most important thing that Great Adventures wants is for you to show up on time consistently.
Right.
And so when he goes on that interview, he needs to be able to say that I was the usher at church, and so every Sunday I had to be at church 30 minutes before everybody else. And if church started at 10 o'clock, every Sunday at 9:30, I had to be there at 9:30 and be working at 9:30 and not walking in the door at 9:30. And so but it was just a conversation about what he had done and being able to turn the church usher position into real job experience and showing up on time. And I'm just pleased to announce that she emailed me the other day and said that he got the job, but 3 of his friends didn't because they couldn't answer that basic question.
But that's an excellent point, because especially at that age, I mean, I think like she was concerned about it being the first job. It's always that catch-22. It's like, I won't have my first job if nobody hires me, and nobody will hire me because I never had the first job, which doesn't make sense. But your point is excellent in terms of when you get in that interview, kind of manage it with your answers to show the transferable skill.
Yes.
In other words, like you said, if on time is what you're looking for, let me give you examples of places I've had to be on time. If this skill is what you're looking for, let me give you examples. I mean, talk to me a little bit about in terms of kids keeping portfolios or scrapbooks or something. I mean, is that something that they ought to take to the interview as well?
Absolutely. Well, the number one thing we tell the kids is, hey, listen, social media is great, but it can also be the linchpin. Because people look at your social media now.
Right.
And so if you're going for a job, someone is going to go to your Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn page. And if you have great stuff on there, then they're going to at least be able to listen to you. But if you have a lot of crazy stuff on there, they're not. And so in a lot of cases, their social media pages are their portfolios.
Wow.
But we definitely recommend that they have material that kind of highlights those type of things, and then ask the employer to say, well, I've bought some things here. Would you like to see? And then the employer may say yes or no, but at least that you'd have it so that they can kind of indicate where they're going. But that Facebook page or that Twitter page, or I'm not familiar with the Instagram and some of the other things that the young people use, but whatever they're using today, that is, in fact, their portfolio.
See, that's another excellent point, and that's another perspective and another way to view things, because until you just said that, I never thought of the social media actually acting as a portfolio. But that's an excellent point. And again, children need to understand, be very careful what you put on your social media, because you think when you hit delete that it's deleted, but it's not. And the other piece of it is they think, and Matt, because I've had this conversation again with my kids, they don't think employers and schools actually go back and check on their Facebook pages. They don't. Yes, they do. You could not get a job because of something they've seen on one of your social media sites. And to hear you flip it the other way, like you actually could get a job based on something they've seen on it, that's something powerful to think about as well. Listening audience, if you've just joined us, my guest this morning is Matthew Stevens, and we're talking about his book, Welcome to the Number 2 Work. It's a nice little play on words and numbers. Welcome to work. Now, see, whenever this topic brings back wonderful memories for me, because I've been working since I was 16. And I want to talk a little bit about now in terms of once you've got the job, the work ethic as a young person that you have to have in order to keep it and to advance. And that's what I was talking about a couple of minutes ago when I said It's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, okay, who you know might get you there, but what you know will keep you there. So that under that, what you know is part of work ethic. When I was 16 years old, I was hired by the school district as a custodian. It was my summer job. I got hired, and so when I got there, the head custodian said, all right, this is your duties. You're going to clean up the parking lot every morning you come. He gave my rundown for the day. And when I talk about work ethic, he came to me and he says, I've never had a kid clean the parking lot like this. I've never had a kid do so forth and so on. I've had kids before, but I've never had one do it like this. So Matt, he now says, would you be interested in, because the summer was now coming to a close. He said, would you be interested in working in the afternoons from 3 o'clock to 6 o'clock? Mm-hmm. And I said, sure. I said, I was still in school. I was a junior or a senior. I think I was going into my senior year. And so at the end of the school day, I would change into my custodian uniform. And he actually gave me a floor like the full-timers. He gave me I had the same responsibilities in my 3 hours as the full-timers had in their 8 hours. And my classmates would tease me that I was a janitor and I cleaned toilets. I did that and the other. Fine, you can say what you wanted, but my green money spent the same way. So when I finished high school, did the 3 to 6 tour, he says, you know what? You did that so well. Would you be interested in working full-time at night from now, instead of 3 to 6, 3 to 11? Sure. I'm 18 years old, and I was going to college at William Patterson, so I was going to school during the day, working at the high school at night, cleaning it. And I now became like an 18, 19 years old because he says, you did that so well, would you supervise the guys at night?
Right.
So we had guys there that had been working there for years. I'm this 18, 19-year-old kid that comes in that's now supervising them. And I'm sharing that story, the quick version of it, to say it was the work ethic that got noticed. Talk a little bit about, once you've got the job, some things you could do to get yourself noticed in a positive way.
Well, the one thing that I really strongly believe in is mentorship. So in the beginning of that chapter on keeping the job, the first thing I talk about is finding a mentor at work. Because a lot of times, again, you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And if you are a bright young person, there's got to be an aunt type or uncle type of person that's at that job that'll help you to kind of say, no, you don't want to wear those shorts. Or,
correct.
That's not how you interact in a staff meeting or those type of things. And so I talk to young people about actually how to identify a mentor at work. In some instances, the jobs have formal mentor programs. In others, like when I was in college, there was a formal mentor program in the counseling center that I can kind of go to. But I tell the young people one of the best ways to get noticed is when you go to your boss and ask your boss the specific question, is there anyone here who you think I should reach out to as a mentor? And what that does is it tells that supervisor, this kid is different. This kid wants to do something. And so then the manager says, well, if you're in the janitorial area, I want you to go over and talk to Ed. And then as soon as you leave, he's going to call Ed and says, hey, this kid named Mark is going to come down. I want you to kind of show him the ropes for me, all right? And so by just asking that question of your supervisor, who could I look for mentoring, it broadens your ability to be successful at the company. And then, like you said, the basics of showing up on time, working hard, completing the task, asking questions when you don't know, all of these things are important. But I think it really kind of starts with the young person deciding that they want to be successful and then finding different ways to get there.
See, all these tips, all these guidelines, strategies, tactics, for the children who take you up on them, they're going to be a step ahead of the game. They're going to be outstanding. They're going to be standing apart from their peers who don't do this. Because you're right, as the person who is interviewing, those things leap right out at you. Wow, whoa, this child asked for a mentor? Whoa, this child comes to work on time every day? Whoa, this child is... Those things leap out. And that was what I was talking about, the difference between just doing enough to get by versus I'm going to stand out from my peers in a positive and powerful way. And I'm sitting here listening to you as we're having this conversation, and what's going through my mind is, wow, if somebody stepped in my office doing these things that you're talking about, yeah, they would get the job.
Indeed. I've never been an athlete. When I was growing up in the 70s, we didn't have social media, so everybody had to kind of go out for Pop Warner football or Little League baseball. And I never really had what it took to be a starter. But my friend, I remember my friends, they were the starters. And one day my friend stepped to me. He was like, you could be a starter just like us. You just got to want it more.
Right.
I never took that to really understand what he was talking about until I became an adult, and realized that the reason that guys are on the bench and the reason that guys are starting is not always because that you're that more talented than the person, particularly at Pop Warner level. It's really just who wants it more. So we hope that what the book does is engages the young people in finding that about themselves early, whether it's playing football or working at a copy center. But you have to want it more for yourself than the next guy, and that is really what's going to determine if you're a starter or you're a bench player. Key
point again. For those of you parents who are listening, if you have teenagers or young people, I hope you have a pen and paper. I know it's early in the morning, but hope you're jotting down some of these. And certainly, if not, you can get a copy of the book. You can get in touch with Matt, or you can go to the website. And when we get to the interview, I give Matt the opportunity to promote in any manner he so chooses, with the exception of a dollar amount. But I'm telling you, these are the things that will set your child, or yourself for that matter, apart. I mean, I'm sitting here looking at, I may be interviewing myself at some point, then I'm going to go back over these because you want to be the difference. You don't want to be in a situation where everybody's coming in saying the same thing, doing the same thing, because the person who's interviewing is looking for somebody that's a cut above. They want their best candidate. That's who they want. Whenever they're interviewing people, they want the best candidate. And what this book is showing you is how to be the best candidate. And I'm telling you, everybody's not going to go in that interview employing these strategies. And for those who do, they have a far better chance at getting the job than those who don't. I'm looking through here. We were talking about working in a diverse organization. Now, interestingly enough, and my daughter, she just graduated college last year, and she's working now and started working. So Dad, I'm the only African American in the group. And I understand, because for years I was in that same situation whenever I was working in corporate America. Matter of fact, most of the time I was the only African American in the group. But now we have so many different diversities, for lack of a better way of putting it, other than just race. I mean, when you get into the workplace now, there's a whole lot of differences that you may or may not have to deal with. Talk a little bit about that whenever you say working in diverse organizations.
Yes, the one thing that young people have that our generation didn't as much is they've gone to school in diverse situations. They've
Correct.
grown up with things that were abnormal to us,
right,
is normal to them.
Right.
Like, most of the kids today don't know anything other than a black president. And for us, it was a dream come true. But
right.
For them, it's normal.
That's right.
They don't know anything other than a black president. If you ask them, like, wow, they'd be like, well, why are you tripping?
That's right.
They've become accustomed to working with people. Things that we may see like, wow, that's different, is not as different for them, because they've grown up in a different place. But in the workplace, everybody is really required to adhere to the company culture, regardless of if you're white, you're black, you're
right.
straight, you're gay, you're tall, you're small. Everyone has to adjust to the company culture.
Correct.
Because that's the culture that really focuses on. So if you're at UPS, everybody's working hard at UPS. You got the little brown shorts. And
correct.
You come in, you get it done. If you're working at a law firm, you're coming in the blue suit. You can't wear the beige suit at the law firm.
Right.
You might be able to wear the beige suit if, like, you're a professor, but, only blue or gray.
Correct.
At a law firm. And so with diversity, we encourage the young people to be able to be accepting and not to be judgmental. But at the bottom line is that the most important culture to understand from a business perspective, not from a you don't forget who you are or anything like
right.
that. But you really got to know that if you're going into a company, you have to understand that company culture, and you have a choice not to work at that company.
Correct.
You can't take the job and then try to say, well, why do I have to wear this, or why can't I do that? Because then you won't survive there.
That's correct.
That's our major thing, is to understand the company culture.
And see, and right there is what you hit upon when I was talking about trying to help the children understand that some of the things that they've normalized when they get into the greater society, they're going to be hit with exactly what you just said. Well, why can't I wear this? No, that's not what we do here. And as you just said, now you have the choice whether you accept the job or not. But if you've accepted it, then you're going to have to comply.
And that is what it is. I mean, like, if you wear your hair a certain way, and the company culture is not in line with that, you have to get a job somewhere else.
Correct.
And that's, a lot of people look down on me for that perspective. But I firmly believe that if you know up front that this is how we do things here, then you have a choice. But don't think that you're going to be able to come in and tell somebody else, this is, you're going to thank you for hiring me. Now I'm going to do what I want to do.
Correct. And see, and again, I can't speak for every school in my district, but in the school that I serve in, I have a collection of people that's their mindset, that they're going to go places and dictate. And in their mind, the louder they can holler or the more they can curse is the more they will get what they're trying to dictate. And I'm trying to help them understand, if you take these practices outside of here, because I don't even accept them in here, but if you take it outside of here, you're going to be in for a very rude awakening. So one of the things me and my administration and the teachers and everybody, we're trying to help the kids understand, we don't want to give you a false perception. We don't want to help, we don't want to make you believe that if you do that in here, that now you're going to get out there and say, nobody ever told me that. You're like, yes, we did. We told you that it doesn't work outside of here like that. And you summed it up very well when you just said, all right, now look, if you're choosing to work here, you're going to have to comply with our culture. The next thing I want to talk a little bit about, which is interesting, and this is, again, going back into curriculums and school systems. And I thought I saw something the other day about it, but I'm not sure. But one thing that's not addressed coming up the line is finances. I mean, I think finances need to be taught from like kindergarten, because we need to have like a course in money. And I'm looking at common budgeting practices. Talk a little, because the kids are funny in terms of their perception of what a lot of money is. Because when you start talking about, when you get your first little McDonald's job that you honestly think you're going to be able to support families and big cars and rims and this, that, and the other, and rent and all that, they're like sad. They're like, so, okay, let's do a budget. Let's do what you'll make per week. Let's multiply that by 4. That's per month. And then let's do some of the expenses of what now you're going to have to pay out to have all these things that you say you're going to have on your McDonald's job. Talk a little bit about budgeting.
Well, I started budgeting out with another personal experience that I had when I got my first job. And the title of that particular case study is "What the heck is FICA?" or "Who the heck is FICA?"
Right.
Because I remember, getting my first paycheck, and I had it all planned out, and I was like, "Where'd the 10% go?" Something's not right. I went back to the boss and was like, "You know what? Who is this person? And what? Why is it so much?" And so. Using that in a joking manner just to kind of help the kids recognize that the first thing you're going to pay is taxes. And in some cases, the kids don't pay taxes, but at some point in time they will.
Right.
So they have to kind of understand that. They have to understand the difference between, gross and net.
Right.
But then we have them do exactly what you just said. We ask them specific questions on, what is a want versus a need, and how do you kind of measure that? And, the percentages change based upon, your outlook on things. And so some people say you got to put so much in for savings. Some people say you have to do so forth and so on. But what I try to do is to try to give a basic understanding that you have to have a set pattern with your finances and stick to that pattern. If you don't stick to anything else, you stick to your financial pattern. And once you start to do that, you'll start to see things come into play. And so if you say every single payday that I'm going to save 10%, at the end of the month or the end of the year, you've had a consistency. And so I'm rambling here a little bit, but my point is that in the finance area, we talk to the young people about how to look at financing from the perspective of you don't want to work just to be working. You want to work and be able to enjoy the benefits of working through your savings, through understanding what credit is and how to best apply it. But then I throw in, as much as I can at this stage, the focus on investing.
Right.
And I asked the young people to watch a video by a gentleman named Robert Kiyosaki.
Right.
He wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book helped change my thinking in regards to working and spending and saving, but most importantly about investing. And I think that today's young people really need to look at money differently and let their money work for them and not the opposite.
No question. And the thing is, whenever I was that age, we got those same kind of saves. And, some friends of mine did. I was one who didn't. And the time goes by very quickly. When you're telling somebody that's 18, 17 to consistently save this amount, because by the time you're 40 or 50 or whatever, you'll have this amount. That's a long way off. But those years roll by very quickly. Very quickly. And if they...
go ahead. I'm sorry. The one thing that we really kind of focus on, we put up a pair of designer sneakers, so with Michael Jordan sneakers, and if they cost $300, the pair of sneakers, and you're making $9 an hour, after your expenses of you have to pay for transportation, the bus card, you have to. You got to make sure that you're groomed. So you got to get a haircut, or if you're a young lady, you have to get a hair do, your nails, or your the things. All of those things, after all of the needs come out, and then what you have left as far as want is only 25%. It would take you all summer long plus 2 additional months to be able to actually afford the Jordans, which would only last you 30 days if you wear them every day. So we ask the young people to do that so that they can understand, the value of the different products that they have. And all of the parents, I think, are going to appreciate this. The last part of that budget lesson plan is that we say to them, we want you to list all of the things that you're going to pay and all of the things that you expect your parents to continue to pay now that you have a job. And so we ask them, should your cell phone bill now become your responsibility? Should you donate, or not donate, but should you provide some of your money towards the rent or towards electric or something of that nature. And then, if you're from a religious perspective, is it time for you to start tithing?
Right.
all of these things to kind of get them to kind of understand that it can't be about the Jordans or whatever it is that they're doing these days. Or maybe you can't afford an iPhone 10.
Right. That's right.
And I know you have kids, and so you understand the first time your kid gets that check and realizes that they really can't afford what they've been asking you to buy.
Right.
That's the best time in a parent's life when they kind of say, well, when you see your child cutting out coupons.
That's right. My 23-year-old, she is very miserly, but I laugh whenever she says, now I see what you and Mom were talking about. Yes. Now you see because they would give us big time attitude. If we didn't get something that they want and we said, well, you know what, we just don't have it right now, or, we got to do something else right now. Big time attitude. Now that they have to do it, now you see.
Now they see it. That light popped up.
That's exactly right. So I get a big kick out of talking because my 23-year-old, she's on her own. She's down in the D.C. area, and she calls up talking about trying to manage in terms of the rent and make her car payment and this, that. Oh, now you see. Whenever we tried to explain that to you, you give us a bunch of frown face and you all just don't want to do it and yada, yada, yada. Now you see it wasn't a matter of us just not wanting to do it, that we had other priorities. And you're seeing that you have to prioritize. Right. You have to prioritize your money. You're getting a chance to see that now for yourself, now that you're making your own and you have to spend your own.
And so we've definitely focused on that. The number one thing, the kids got to start with a bank account. You
right.
have to have. You can't go to the check cashing place because that 1%, 2%, 5%. It adds up.
Yes, it does.
It's like, why would you want to give somebody else your money? It's bad enough that the banks are, not giving you a good interest rate, but at least at the bank, it helps you get started with the funding. So we definitely encourage young people to open up a savings account, open up a checking account, and to not carry as much cash because what they have now, like I know at the bank that I bank at, I'm sure the bank that you bank at as well, you can manage much more effectively with your debit card.
Correct.
Because you can actually see what you're spending, and then you can modify your spending.
Correct.
Because you see it every month that when it comes up. You can't do that if you have wads of cash because it goes so much faster.
That's absolutely right. So the last area I'm going to touch on a little bit before we get into the promo of everything you do is I see here you got the notion of internship, because you get a lot of young people say, I ain't doing that for free. I ain't working for nobody for free, not realizing the invaluable experience they get from being wherever they are working as an intern. Talk a little bit about that.
We strongly encourage experience over everything. The internship, in addition to learning the skill and the craft, it more importantly allows you to be around the type of people who will help you in the future. And so you might get the lifeguard position that pays, because I think lifeguards make a couple more dollars than the average kid in the summertime because of the skill
right.
that they have. But that $3 an hour difference really can't compete if you had an opportunity to intern at the law firm or the doctor's office, or if you wanted, then there's a little girl I know that wants to be a veterinarian. But they're not going to hire her
right.
as a veterinarian aide, but they would allow her to work as an intern, and she learns all kinds of stuff. And that experience, but more importantly, the people that you work with
right.
Is invaluable. So we encourage the young people to look for internship opportunities. In a lot of cases, you can make your own. Just like I was able to meet you on social media, young people can do the same thing. Just meet somebody or write them based upon something that they saw online, the worst thing that could happen is that they're going to say no. But it's more likely that the person is going to say yes if you approach them the right way. And so the internship is an invaluable experience, and that will pay off dividends way beyond your imagination.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's what I was talking about earlier when I was talking about the kid that wanted to be the neurosurgeon. In 2018, and like the last few years, particularly since the advent or the introduction of social media, it's a phenomenon like none other I've ever seen. And I remember, and I've shared the story before on the air, I remember as a child, because I'm a big Pittsburgh Steelers fan, New York Yankee fan. And I remember writing letters to whoever my favorite ball player was or whoever the favorite team was or whatever, what they call now snail mail, not getting any response. But on Twitter or on Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or any of those social media sites, regardless of the status, I don't care how high the celebrity status is, if you inbox them or tweet them, whatever, they respond. I mean, when I tell you, when I said earlier about social media being a blessing in terms of the guests I've been able to get, I mean, I've had Martin Luther King's nephew on here. I've met through social media. I've had Judge Hatchett on here through social media. I've had Nikki Giovanni on here, met through social media. I've had, I'm trying to think, Martin Luther King's, his cousin, Alveda. I've met her on social media and LinkedIn. I've had Nikki Wood on here. I can go up and down the list of folks that are celebrities, on television. I had a couple of weeks ago, I had Areva Martin. I know if you're on LinkedIn, you've probably seen Areva on there because she's on there as well.
Yeah.
Areva Martin, I've had her on here. And right the week before she was appearing on here, she popped up on CNN. And I'm sitting there looking like, wait a minute. I said, that's the same young lady that's booked to be on the show Saturday. I'm saying all that to say, regardless of their quote unquote celebrity status, if you connect with them in a social media site, they respond in comparison to like in the old days with a paper pencil letter. Nobody responded, if ever. So if there ever was a time that, for like I was saying with the kid with the neurosurgeon, and I told him, go on Google, look up area neurosurgeons, send them an email saying, my name is such and such, I'm an 8th grade student and I want to be a neurosurgeon when I grow up. Can you, like you just said about the internships. And the other piece, kids, you need to understand, people love talking about themselves. Mm-hmm. So if you now send them something saying, I want to be and do what you do, there's very few people, Matt, that I know that won't respond to that. Because if a child lets Mr. Medley, I want to be a principal, what do I need to do? You best believe I'm going to take some time with that child and say, okay, kid, this is what you need to do, so forth and so on. So the time has never been to me riper than it is now to get response.
Absolutely. What we do with the young people, and I learned this from one of my mentors, is that when you make that ask, you don't make the ask about you. You make the ask about them.
Right.
So nobody really wants to get that first ask as, hey, can you give me?
Right.
In regards to a job or money or whatever the case may be. I ask the young people to ask questions like, if you're going to give me anything, can you give me advice on what book I should read?
Right.
Now that is something that will be like, oh, well, you know what? I'm going to send you this book. I had this book on my shelf and someone gave it to me and now I'm going to give it to you.
Correct.
And that builds that relationship where the person wants to say, well, I wonder how that kid is doing,
Right.
And we have that in the book as well, where we talk about how to develop business relationships. Because again, a kid can't know what they don't know.
Correct.
And that's what I've learned throughout my life, for myself, as a father, as a mentor. But it's not brain science. And so in this book, what I've done is I've taken the opportunity to engage young people in case studies that simply ask them to read and respond, what would you do? And then what adults are asked to do, whether it be the teacher, the counselor, the coach, the parent, is to talk to them about it from their perspective. Because a kid, we did it in East Orange the other day. The kid says, well, why would I wear a shirt and a tie?
There you go.
Yeah, all the other the adults that were there says, well, this is how we see it from our perspective. And so we were able to see, he had an honest perception that he just could not see it the other way until someone actually helped him to kind of see it. And but then again, there are some things that young people see that older people don't.
Right.
That conversation is rich, and it helps to kind of go back and forth in a two-way area. So we're really proud about the book and the experiences that young people and parents will get by reading and responding to the various case studies in it.
Well, I'll tell you what, while you're on that point, that's a wonderful segue into this last section. And I'm going to go ahead and do that even before I change over into the 8 o'clock hour. And this is your opportunity to promote anywhere you're going to be, how folks can get in touch with you, your website, the book, how to order it, how to get you to come out and guest speak or whatever. You can say anything with the exception of a dollar amount or a price. They can work that out with you when they contact you. But anything short of that, I'm turning the mic off and it's yours. Great.
Well, man, I want to thank you so much for inviting me out. I'm trying to get as many opportunities as I possibly can to speak on radio shows, on television shows, on internet shows. So I can be contacted. My number is 973-820-8999. And my website and email address is the same. It's welcome-to-work.org. And the number is the number 2. So we will be in our next area. We're throughout the state, and we really work with churches tremendously. Our next church in that area, in the Patterson area, will be at Reverend Randall Lassiter's church, the Calvary Baptist Church in Patterson, New Jersey, on June 9th from, I believe it's 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And the information is on the website, welcome-to-work.org. And we're going to be at a number of different churches throughout the area. We ask anyone who's interested in the workshop to please get in contact with us directly. And I've provided that information. So once again, the phone number is 973-820-8999. And the website is welcome-to-work.org with the number 2.
All right. Well, that's it for us this morning. This concludes another edition of the Reading Circle with your host, Marc Medley. And it's been a blast because, again, that's a subject that is near and dear to my heart because I work with kids and I do try to help them understand how they need to connect the dots, that what they're doing, even in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th grade level in high school, how it's one day going to transfer and translate into what they're ultimately going to do in their careers. And like I said, your book gives them some remarkable tactics and strategies to set themselves apart from probably some of their peers. Like if they get your book and go through those exercises and they get into that interview, I pretty much can guarantee them that they're going to get recognized, that they're going to get noticed, and probably 9 times out of 10 get hired. So I applaud you in terms of the work that you're doing. Like I said, on June 9th, there's a lot of kid things going on with the various churches. So I don't know if all the pastors got together and said this is going to be Kid Day or what, because I know we're doing something at St. Luke, and if Reverend Lassiter is doing something at Calvary, there may be some other things going on. So if I get the chance on the 9th, I may pop over there to get a chance to meet you in person since you're going to be in the area.
That would be great. And I'm in the area quite often. For doing a lot of different work in a lot of different areas. And I'll make sure that I put the actual copy of the book in the mail for you tomorrow so that you can get it for yourself.
Oh, great.
And if there's opportunities to do things at your school, we also do the work. We bring it down to a level that 8th graders can get prepared for that as well. So if the opportunity arises this year or next, we look forward to working with you as well as at the St. Luke Church.
Same here. All right. Well, I wish you a wonderfully blessed rest of the day. Have a great holiday weekend, the rest of the year as well. It's just, again, it's a wonderful work, because really, when you come down to it, it's about making life better for somebody else. And I can't imagine making life better for somebody else in a more prevalent way than allowing them an opportunity to go out and work, to be able to get themselves a job and not necessarily be relying upon the system, or to be, because everybody has to have something that they need to do. Everybody has to have a purpose. And you're allowing kids the opportunity, like you said, they don't know what they don't know, but you're giving them the opportunity to know. Correct. And so I applaud you for that. And again, I'd love to get a copy of the book. I'll email you the mailing address, so forth and so on. And you never know where things will come from there. You never know. I may have to see if I can order a few copies to have around the building, or a workshop or something, because it's that critical. It really is.
We really appreciate the time and the effort, and I want to thank you. I congratulate you on a wonderful show. And thank you, and God bless you.
All right. Same to you. All right. Take care now.
Take care.
All right. You too.